Momentarily overshadowed by the outcome of February 2024 elections, Maulana Fazal Rehman, leader Jamiyat-e-Ulama-Islam JUIF, has once again emerged into the spotlight. Both the government and the opposition are vying to garner his support. Maulana is engaged in discussions with the principal opposition party, the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf PTI. He is backing Jamaat-e-Islami's demonstrations against high electricity bills, and he is holding meetings with the government officials and representatives of the establishment all at the same time. Simultaneously, the nationalist figure Akhtar Mengal seems to be long dissatisfied with the situation in Balochistan and has resigned from his parliamentary seat. In both instances, are these two traditional leaders leveraging their bargaining power for personal gain? Or is there a shift in their approach to politics stemming from the recent elections? I am Zunaira Azhar and you're watching Epicenter, where we dissect, analyze and help define major domestic and global stories. Let's bring in our guest to discuss this, and we have been joined by former Governor Sindh, Mr. Mohammad Zubair. Thank you so much, Mr. Zubair, for joining us. Now, is it Maulana's street power that worries the government, or the fact that his alignment with the PTI could have a massive potential to bring the legitimacy of the government in question? Why has Maulana become suddenly so inevitable for the government?
I think Maulana Fazlur Rahman's JUI has the most capacity in terms of street power, and that everyone recognizes, whether it's the establishment or the ruling parties or the opposition PTI. You would recall that during PTI's time in government in 2019, Maulana Fazlur Rahman went for a dharna, which was at that time not supported by the other opposition parties, mainly the PMLN. But he did create a lot of fuss, and I think through the intervention of the then military establishment, he called it off. But I think in the process he must have negotiated something. So his negotiating power basically comes from his strength as a street power, not in terms of his parliamentary power. I mean, he has few seats, that's always the case, but they are not really the reason for everyone vying to get his support. Apparently, his decision in the beginning to go along with PTI against the ruling parties, he has changed that for whatever reason. One could say that he's now trying to get maximum out of the current situation. And please also remember that in his last speech in the parliament, he said whether people sitting here have come through Form 45 or Form 47. Now we have to work within this system. So he's even legitimized the elections of February 2024 as such.
Yeah, but isn't that going against his initial stance? Because he was challenging the whole legitimacy of these elections big time along with the PTI, although the coalition didn't work, but still he was very vocal about it. And the fact that he and his son both lost in their own constituency, how does it seem to the masses that somebody who was like 6 months back saying something else and now bargaining all the power that he has in the streets towards the parliamentary affairs?
Doesn't affect his popular support, whatever limited popular support he has in his own constituencies. You just said that he lost his election in his hometown. He won in Balochistan instead, which is also very important for him, but within his own constituency, in his hometown, he lost. Doesn't affect as such, because his politics has never been so consistent in that way. The second thing and very important aspect is that his initial stance to voice concern about 2024 elections was strange enough, because he was voicing concern about massive rigging and saying that that has happened primarily in KP, because in Punjab he was hardly there. He or his party was hardly there, or in Sindh or in other parts of Pakistan. So when you are challenging the legitimacy of the elections in KP, where everyone would agree that as far as the results are concerned, they are a true reflection of PTI's popularity in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and also in Punjab. So what exactly what was his concern. His concern was not against the parties which are in the government, PPP and PMLN, because they had not taken away seats from him.
Yeah, that's really strange, and that's actually questionable that he was talking about the rigging in the very constituency and province where he lost, and he was also sitting with the people who actually won against him. So that alliance never seemed organic to me, at least. He believes, if he believes that his mandate was stolen, do you think that our traditional politicians really can take such U-turns in such short time and still think they can carry it away with it, they can get away with it till the next election? Or is it that we have become so hybrid, we have become so controlled, that the connection between the masses and the politician is actually broken?
One of the aspects of our, one of the tragedies of our national narrative is that the political parties are losing legitimacy in terms of the U-turns that they take and the massive U-turns. I mean, every political party, even in US or UK or elsewhere, they change their positions according to circumstances. But here we are ready to change blatantly and without regard to what is going to happen in the next electoral process. Here is far more. Look at PMLN, for example. I mean, I think they have set their views very short term rather than looking at the long term prospects of the party. They wanted to come into power no matter what it takes, and they have got into power. But in the process, they actually accept that they have lost political legitimacy, whether you talk about Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif or Defense Minister Khwaja Asif or others. They say they've lost political capital. They give another reason for that, that in order to save Pakistan, they had to sacrifice their political capital. But the truth is that they wanted to come into power, and in order to come into power, they have lost their political capital. What happens next time in the elections, whatever the situation is, they hope and think that PTI will be finished by that time, whichever way establishment will take care of them. And this is the only way to come to power. So I don't think so many political parties think too much in the long run.
Yeah, and also nobody unfortunately debates that how can you talk of the political capital when in fact even now you're not trying to touch base your voter that you have lost, like coming from Mr. Nawaz Sharif, who is like nowhere to be seen in the parliament at the moment. The least he could do was getting in touch with the same voter that has actually gone the other way, but that is not happening. Moving on to the next question, during a media briefing this Thursday, there was a very clear hint from the military of a military trial of the Prime Minister, ex-Prime Minister, Imran Khan I'm talking about. Do you see that happening?
Well, in Pakistan, anything can happen because we don't think too much about our credentials as a nation. I think if Imran Khan is tried under military court, no one is going to accept it. Not just in Pakistan, but we have to consider very, very important. We have to consider that we are part of the international community and the world looks at us, and Imran Khan is no ordinary person. I mean, I'm not saying that the law should be different for different people, but when I say Imran Khan is no ordinary people, everyone takes notice of that. Already, some of the decisions that have gone against him, some of the convictions like the Iddat case and also other cases, I think no one has acknowledged. Even the Pakistani people did not accept that. A week before the elections 2024, there were 3 convictions against him. And yet people came out under very difficult circumstances and went to vote. So nothing changes politically. But it obviously for Pakistan's and Pakistan's judicial process, it will backfire and backfire massively. The first thing is I and you won't know whatever happens in the military court. If you are trying General Faiz Hamid, that makes a lot of sense because he comes from the military background. But trying Imran Khan, and no one knows what the prosecution and the defense is coming up with arguments. And finally, we only hear the decision. And in case it goes against Mr. Imran Khan, what does it say about the Pakistan's judicial system, which is already tarnished? No one believes that Pakistan has a credible judicial system. So I think that would be a very poor thing to do trying Mr. Imran Khan under military court. Let me just clarify. I am not saying that if, for example, there is a relationship and Mr. General Faiz Hamid comes up with this statement that he was with Mr. Imran Khan in terms of staging the May 9th protest, for example. I'm not suggesting that he should not be questioned or he should not be tried. That trial is already going on, some kind of a May 9th. But it has to be in a credible civilian court. That's what I'm saying.
Right, I get it. But the government seems to be completely endorsing this thing that he should be tried in the military court if needed, because there is a statement in front of me that is coming from the legal department of the government. It says that under military law, anyone who uses individuals subject to the Army Act for personal or political gain and evidence of such action exists will be subject to the law taking its course. Now, because both things are correlated, we are talking about one person who is under trial for court-martial and also for gaining political support from Imran Khan for his personal means. So we have to understand what is converging here.
I think I'm not legal expert. I'm no legal expert, but legal opinions can come whichever way you want to put it. And Pakistan is famous for coming up, whether it was the trial of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman or the trial of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto and so on. The question is, when the government is indifferent to the resolution, overwhelming resolution of the American Congress, I think only 8 votes came against it, but calling into question the 2024 February elections. When the government is indifferent to that, at best the government expects that there will be protest in terms of questions raised by the American Congress or some British parliamentarians and so on and so forth. So the government is not really concerned about it. They want to see the back of Imran Khan, whether it takes the military court to do it, whether it takes the civilian court, whatever. They want to put Imran Khan behind bars. They want to ensure that he remains behind bars for the next 2 years or 3 years till the time that government tenure ends, at least.
Okay, let me be the devil's advocate here. It seems that let it be PTI, let it be the current government, we are always relying on the external support, like international pressure. PTI has been lobbying, PTI has been actively engaging with the diplomats and diaspora internationally to get Imran Khan released. And same goes for our government. Unless and until there is a pressure from international community, nothing moves in Pakistan. So is it safe to say that we are not bothered about our own democracy and our own house to be put in order, except for when it becomes a trouble internationally because we are economically so dependent on them?
Actually, as far as the government is concerned, it's not even concerned about the international reaction or the international pressure, although it does affect, and like, for example, Pakistan is desperate about the IMF package now, and IMF, you know how much Americans can influence the IMF decision this way or that way, and a very important board meeting of the IMF has to take place. What would be the interest of America? Obviously, we are all concerned about it. We are all concerned that IMF package must go through. But the government at this time should be more concerned about the fact that we don't do anything that creates a sense of concern, a serious sense of concern for Pakistan's democratic credentials as far as US is concerned, as far as West is concerned. And this will not be the last thing. IMF is not the last thing that we depend on. There are obviously other financial institutions that we need the support for international obligations. We need the support to raise Euro bonds. We need the support to raise, to do privatization of global transactions and so on and so forth. So Pakistan largely depends on international support. And I think it has to create an atmosphere where the world does not have any major questions. Minor questions could be there. Major questions about Pakistan's democratic credentials, which presently I think they have, and there would be concerns.
Right. I have this statement from Punjab Assembly Speaker Malik Muhammad Ahmed Khan in front of me, in which he is expressing dissatisfaction with the pace of May 9 case trial. And he says that, I'm wondering what is taking the law enforcers and prosecutors so long to complete the prosecution process. PTI lawmakers are also urging the Chief Justice that, try them, prosecute them if they are responsible for it, or else release them. So this is a political victimization, and the more it is delayed, it gives legitimacy to PTI's stance that either it was a false flag operation or this is political victimization. Why do you think judiciary is so reluctant to come up with the eventual decisions on those cases?
Actually, the government has used, the ruling party has used May 9th as a political thing. Whenever you have to attack PTI, all you need is to attack them. See, they did May 9th, they're responsible for May 9th, something that has never happened in the history of Pakistan. Not even Awami League in its prime days did anything like that against military cantonments and so on. So they have used it largely for political thing. They thought before February 24th election that narrative will sell and people will obviously react to that and not vote for PTI. That did not work. So in a way you could say that the larger segment of Pakistani society rejected the government's narrative about May 9th when they went and voted for PTI in February 2024. As far as government's thinking or failure to prosecute, I think the failure is written large. If you take cases like Sanam Javed, Alia Hamza, and few others who have been released after more than a year, although they were implicated on May 9th charges, and they were not just implicated for their whatever they did in Lahore, but what they were doing in Sargodha or Miawali and other places.
All
and
at
you
the same
saw
time.
that even after all those FIRs which were filed in different cities of Punjab, they still got released. Getting released means there was no case against them in the first place. And as far as those who are already who are still in jail, like Mahmood Rashid or Ijaz Chaudhry and Shah Mahmood Qureshi and Imran Khan, well, I think it is the responsibility, the onus is entirely on the government and the ruling party to come up with prosecution that can carry enough weight to convict them. And I'm sure about you and others would like to see if there is enough evidence, they should be convicted, whoever was responsible for that. But other than that, if there is no prosecution, if there is delay in the process, the Speaker of Punjab Assembly should ask internally his own government people, his own government legal experts, why are we failing to come up with enough evidence in the courts?
Let's take a short break here. Welcome back to the show once again. If I continue with his statement that states that they are relying more on the establishment to, come forward and fix whatever is to be fixed for the PTI. He said that, I'm of the opinion from day one that they are delayed. By they, he meant the process. Even the ISPR is delaying. What does this mean? Why would he blame ISPR for delaying the prosecution? I mean, they're not responsible for that.
I don't know what the Speaker was thinking when he was making this statement, but I think between the military, which obviously feels that their institution was attacked and they need justice more than the people in the government, and rightly so. They also have to, and ISP chief, whenever he comes and talks in his press conferences, which are more frequent now in recent months, so he does talk about May 9th, and he does talk about the fact that real damage was done to the military's reputation, and it has never happened, and justice must prevail, and those responsible must be convicted. But yet, I think it is for the ISP chief to come up with an explanation what is holding that, and what, in fact, even those who have been arrested, I think more than 100 persons were arrested based on military court trial. 20 of them got released later on. Their trial is also waiting because of the lack of decision from the Supreme Court. So I think the whole thing has been taken for political reasons, I think, and no one is serious about coming up with the kind of convictions that the government or the military expects. And it is, as time runs out, the case will become weaker and weaker, and even the political narrative of that case will become weaker.
Do you buy that argument that judiciary is like the inner segments of judiciary are siding with PTI?
I mean, again, it is for the military or for the law ministry people to answer that question. The fact of the matter is Qazi Faiz Isa, who's the chief judge of Pakistan, who rules Pakistan's judicial system, is no supporter of, no friend of PTI, and everyone knows about it.
Yeah.
That is more than the truth. So why is he not fixing things within his own institution, whether it is in the Supreme Court or in the high courts or in the lower courts? That is for Qazi Faiz Isa to ensure that the cases are run on a fast-track basis, and whatever delays have taken place should not be again withheld. And the case moves fast.
Isa,
like I said, Qazi Faiz Isa is
sort of lost support in his own house.
He has. Pakistan's judiciary, unfortunately, not just now, but when Umar Bandial was the Chief Justice, we saw the Supreme Court was split into two segments. Some of those famous decisions, 4-3 or 3-2 or whatever, regarding Punjab Assembly elections, regarding KP elections, and many other cases that came up. We saw a clear division. Qazi Faiz Isa at that time was on the other side, and the Chief Justice Umar Bandial was on the other side. This time around, it is more evident, and I think looking at the 15-member bench, I don't know the new additions that have come in recently, the majority is against Qazi Faiz Isa, as we saw in the reserved seats decision, which went 8-2 against Justice Faiz Isa. So I think not many people, and also, by the way, even that reserved seats decision, something extremely important was overlooked. The entire Supreme Court went along with the fact as if the January 13th decision taking back the symbol from
the bat
PTI
symbol never happened.
Their
like
conclusion in the reserved seats case was that the Election Commission misinterpreted the decision of January 13th, although that was, from my standpoint, the decision was very clear and blatant, and it meant that the PTI candidate should not be
and
given
Supreme
the
Court
not just the symbol, but also not.
Right. So do you think he is going to continue? Because looking at the current, I'm talking about the Chief Justice of Pakistan, we are looking at legislation in the parliament totally focused on judiciary. There is nothing else that is happening at the moment. And the talk from the drawing rooms is that the reason Maulana is coming close to government is some sort of, getting the numbers right for the direction that the government wants to give to the judiciary. Do you see that happening as well?
I think this is so unfortunate in Pakistan. Over the decades, we have seen the extensions, whichever position, have played havoc. Looking back, none of those extensions made any sense. Now we are talking about the extension in another way for the Chief Justice of Pakistan, who is already not non-controversial, let me say. I mean, he's largely controversial. A large segment of Pakistani population thinks that he is tilted totally towards the ruling parties and will do everything. And there is a connection for him being anti-PTI or anti-Imran Khan, because Imran Khan moved a reference against him, and therefore he has his opportunity to settle scores with Imran Khan. To that extent, I actually did not expect that Qazi Faiz Isa will go to this extent. But we all saw that every decision that comes in the court where PTI is involved, he has not supported the party. Even the February 2024 highly rigged, highly controversial elections, whichever case has come to him, he has thrown it out if it meant supporting or giving a decision in favor of PTI. Now, such a Chief Justice, if he gets an extension for 3 years, I think this will just disturb the entire political narrative about Pakistan, where the people's expectation of a free and fair and independent judiciary, independent of the executive, which is already not there. And if he gets an extension, that will simply go out of the imagination of the people. So I think that would be a very poor decision. Obviously, the government will benefit out of that. The establishment will benefit out of that. But whether it will serve Pakistan's interest, I doubt it.
Well, Mr. Zubair, what highly disturbs me is that although the entire national security spectrum is at threat at the moment when it comes to Pakistan, but the social justice perception has to hold some ground in order to keep the masses a little alive, a little hopeful. But it seems that while clipping the wings of the judiciary or doing whatever, nobody in the executive branch or the parliament is bothered about the perception anymore and what the voter is thinking. And there is this feeling that there is a complete disconnect from the reality that exists among the people and the masses, how they are thinking and looking at the state and what the state is looking at. Do you feel that disconnect as well?
There is a disconnect because the choices are very limited as far as the ruling party is concerned. If they start to connect with them, that means they will start to lose their power, because there will be an acceptance of the fact that the urban educated middle class, the intellectual class, those who are completely disconnected with the ruling elite and whatever is happening. And this comes on top of all the other problems that Pakistan is facing. I'm not talking about the poor people, those below the poverty line and so on. So a large segment, 40% of the people below the class and a large middle class, and I'm talking about the urban educated, they're completely disconnected with the ruling class. And the ruling class in turn has become completely indifferent because they think it is beyond them to convince them.
True.
And therefore, the most important thing is to stay in power. And to stay in power, they will do everything, whether it is constitutional, unconstitutional, legal, illegal, whatever it takes, they will remain in power.
Right.
And that is why I say to all those, whether there is a possibility of negotiations between PTI and the rest and the ruling party, there won't be, because the ruling party has everything to lose by such negotiations, because the first demand from PTI will come in the form of, okay, let's settle whatever happened in the elections in February 2024. Right. And obviously they are not ready to go that way.
Let's take a short break here. Welcome back to the show once again. Do you agree to this observation that currently all the three governments are going in different directions? There is not that essence of federation taking a decision on the issues like inflation and all the issues related to governance. Balochistan is going in different direction. KP is taking a different take on things. Sindh is going in different direction. The only alignment that I see is between Punjab and center, and that is for obvious reason, because the same family is ruling the both centers. Don't you see that this is also a big blow to the already very frail state of affairs?
Which is actually dangerous whenever there is a feeling that Punjab is on one side and the rest of the country is on the other side. It's not a very healthy sign. And when you say federal government and Punjab on one side, obviously the federal government means MLN, which basically comes from Punjab. So Punjab on one side and the rest of the country on the other side, completely isolated from what the thinking in Islamabad or Lahore is. KP, for example, is completely disconnected,
right,
and is not part and parcel of the decision-making process, which it should be as part of the federation. Balochistan is even... Balochistan, I mean, we don't even have the true representatives of the people of Balochistan. That's a starting point. And it simply represents those who were selected before 8th February who were to be part of the Balochistan government. So there's a complete disconnect, and it's a very poor sign of the federation in order to bring the federation together, which it should. I mean, obviously.
Yeah, it's the famous American saying that
when it comes to the
holding together versus keeping together. You know, we should be holding together rather than we are forced to live together. That's a big problem. How do you look at the Balochistan issue with reference to Akhtar Mengal resigning? And what I don't understand is that these mainstream nationalists have been in the parliament since decades now, and they haven't represented their people in the true sense ever. And now all of a sudden they are disgruntled with the system. Do you actually think they are bargaining their power once again from the state, or is it that suddenly there is this smack of reality when it comes to the realities in Balochistan?
I think there could be several reasons. I would not say go to the extent of bargaining, because I would give benefit to Akhtar Mengal for what for his decision, because the problem is that today any person who understands Balochistan, who understands political insight about Balochistan, and who has a history of Balochistan in mind, and Akhtar Mengal obviously is one with all of that facts, would understands that if they continue to be part of the federal capital politics, which determines what happens in Balochistan, they would be isolated. They would have no say. The people of Balochistan are up in arms, not physically up in arms, but mentally, and they are protesting, and they are not. Obviously, there are serious concerns. If you look at simple facts, that Balochistan is in terms of education, the most illiterate. In terms of health care system, they are far behind for the rest of the country. So every indicator points out that, and in terms of how poor they have, the largest percentage, the largest number of people below poverty line. So nothing is basically in favor of Balochistan in terms of infrastructure, in terms of clean drinking water. None of that exists in Balochistan, large parts of Balochistan. And on top of that, you select people to rule them, which are not the true representative of the people. So Akhtar Mengal would obviously know that sitting in Islamabad and showing himself as part of the Islamabad hierarchy, or everyone would stop listening to them. So in order to prolong his political career, I think this is the best that he could have shown.
Fair enough. But Mr. Zubair, then how are we looking at the state of affairs in Balochistan? 43% of the entire country. They have this youth bulge that we can utilize to our advantage if we want to, but that is not happening. Yet there is a CPAC, flagship project between Pakistan and China. The corner piece of it, Gwadar Port, is there, a $60 billion project. Saudi Arabia is aiming to put 15% equity in Requidic, and the whole SIFC idea is also centered around Balochistan. If we do not have stability, if we do not have people with us, how do you develop an area? How are we expecting big-time returns and profits from that area where there is so much unrest?
First, there is a reality about Balochistan. It is very rich in mineral resources.
It is.
You spoke about Requidic. There is, I don't know the exact figures, and I can't claim these to be exact, but there is Requidic, in terms of its value, it's expected to have $200 billion of gold and copper reserves. I mean, this is huge. This is humongous.
Yeah.
This is just Requidic that we are talking about. Then you're talking about Gwadar. There's several other. There's a possibility of big amounts of gas reserves and oil
copper,
reserves,
gold,
and a lot of other minerals which are there. And the population is very small as far as Balochistan is concerned. So there's this natural thing which obviously developed over decades, that their resources are being taken away, their resources are being exploited, and so on and so forth. Some of it was perception, some of it is reality. Don't forget that the first army operation was undertaken in the 60s, when Ayub Khan was the president of Pakistan. Then in the 70s, when ANP, then NAP, National Awami Party, and in which Akhtar Mengal's father was the chief minister, they were banned and outlawed, and the Hyderabad conspiracy case was initiated, and a military operation was started.
Yeah.
Then again in 2006, when Akbar Bukti was killed in a military operation. So they've seen it all. Yet a state or military or political leadership have thought that hammer is the only way of fixing things. That is not the way. You have to make them inclusive. You have to go out to them and first apologize in a way that yes, Balochistan, the people of Balochistan have been ignored. The reality, like I said, look at all the social indicators, human development indicators, economic indicators. They point out to a very major fault line. That Balochistan is far behind. There must be some reason for that. So in order to ensure that we give them a sense of sense where they think that they are part and parcel of the federation, we take decisions like appointing Akhtar as the caretaker prime minister, and people say that this will help them remove the feeling that they have in Balochistan. Absolutely. That feeling will go away when you provide them education, when you provide them healthcare system, when you provide them clean drinking water, infrastructure, clean, good roads, networks, and so on and so forth. And allow them to elect their own people. That's the most important thing. That's the starting point.
Allow me to interject here, because one point that Akhtar Mengal pointed out was that engage with the young leadership over there. And at the moment, by young leadership, he meant Maharang Baloch, whom the state thinks has different agenda. It seems that our state, our governments, the political governments, are not used to act in synergy with each other when it comes to conflict. Look at the talks that were happening around the new operation Azm-e-Istehkam. Nobody was on the same page, and there was not even a single, I believe, all parties conference. So how long can we sustain in going in different directions and not realizing that we have to engage with the youth? Let it be new political parties which are coming into being. I'll come to that later. Let it be the issue of Balochistan. The political governments need to engage with the youth of Pakistan, or for that matter, the whole of Pakistan. Do you see that happening?
You know, one of the things you talked about Maharang Baloch, and she has basically been raising the issue of missing persons, and which is a legitimate demand. The problem, and I know from personal experience, is that when PMLN was in the opposition and Mariam Nawaz, October 2020, under the PDM banner.
She went there.
And so she was very close in terms of the missing persons campaign. And some of the children of the missing persons were brought to the Jalsa, and in order to showcase that how close she is to the whole thing. Even in Islamabad, she went to the camp of missing persons, and she said that whenever they come in power, once they come in power, and that's what Maharang Baloch and others say, that now that you are in power, what are you doing? And we say, no, for us, this is no more an issue.
Exactly.
So that obviously, and that is what our political parties do, campaign for the right causes when in opposition, but once you are in government, either you start to understand the larger dynamics. Yeah, larger dynamic. But you can't blame them. And and one thing that the Pakistani, I think, establishment, and when I say establishment, I mean those, the elite crowd, the decision makers, they have to understand that you cannot just blame outside hand in anything. If there is an outside hand, okay, and I would not discount that, that in Balochistan some foreign players are playing in to undermine Pakistan and whatever. But why are we providing them an opportunity to undertake such a thing? Exactly. This is a classic case in East Pakistan. Everyone knows what India did in East Pakistan in 1971. But was India the responsible factor for the disintegration of Pakistan? No Pakistani today blames India for that. Every Pakistani blames their own people, our own decision makers, going back to 1947 till 1971, of whatever we did with the Bengalis in terms of not allowing them their due rights and not providing them whatever was supposed to be provided. Of course, India took full advantage of that. That is a lesson of history.
But you provided the reasons. For example, there is a report that says that since 2 decades, BLA has become more lethal in terms of the ammunition they have acquired. Well, that part, I would agree that there is an external element involved, but there have been a lot of recruits involved as well. Like, they have actually grown higher when it comes to the recruitment of the suicide bomber. And the suicide bombers and the recruits are the local people. And, you know, it's very obvious. It's understandable why local community is going in that direction. My last bit of question.
If I can just one point, if I can make about
Go
this.
ahead.
You know, any military strategy solution has to be backed and very strongly backed by an economic and political solution. If you don't have that, then it will backfire. The military solution will backfire.
True.
Even if you were to wipe out all the terrorists at that point in time. Because the idea will not be clear. Those having that idea, whatever reason that they took up arms. So unless you back it up with a strong political and strong economic solution, and that goes side by side with the military thing, only then that will work.
All right. My last question to you, your former colleague, friend, I suppose, you were in the same party, Shahid Khaqan Abbasi have launched a new party. But my question is that, do we have enough space for new political parties, given the political space that the political parties have given away in terms of the civil-military balance?
Right now, it doesn't look like Pakistan has a history of many people coming up with new political parties. General Aslam Beg launched his party. General Pervez Musharraf, he was popular, by the way. He launched his own political party, failed miserably. Iftikhar Chaudhry launched his own political party. Many others have come up with ideas of launching a political party. Most countries have a two-party system. And even a third party finds it very difficult to get some space. PTI was an exception. But please also remember, PTI, Imran Khan was a celebrity when he launched the party in 1996.
True.
And it took him 15 years. For the next 15 years, he had won just one National Assembly seat of his own in Miawali. So it takes a very long time because you have to find a space. The parties are basically, they represent the conservative side of the country or the liberal side in somewhere. And it becomes extremely difficult, and Pakistan has its own, obviously, national issues based on which political parties are created, like PMLN or PPP and PTI, now 3 major political parties. I think the first thing required for Shahid Khaqan Abbasi is patience, and a lot of patience, because the results don't come so easily. Whatever happens to PMLN, for example, or to PTI in Punjab over the next few years will determine the success or failure of Shahid Khaqan Abbasi and his party. Because if one of them, PMLN, for example, is no more a relevant political party in the next 2 to 3 years, then that space that PMLN will leave probably will go to Shahid Khaqan Abbasi, because he will find most of his old colleagues coming back to his party. Same could be true for PTI. So obviously he has to find a space. Right now that space is not there, and it will take a lot of time and patience. And I think Shahid Khaqan Abbasi has that patience. How long will that, we will see.
Agreed.
That. Let's hope.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mohammad Zubair, for joining us today. And this wraps up this week's Epicenter. I'll see you next week.